Hi, everyone. My name is Suzanne Hume, and I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org. And welcome. I'd like to start by introducing Jillian.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. Hello and welcome. My name is Jillian. I'm a member of Teams 3 and Teams 5 here at Clean Earth for Kids. I'm also a sophomore at UNC, all the way in North Carolina. Here at Clean Earth for Kids, we have 6 teams, and social, racial, climate, and environmental justice are foundational to all we do. Tonight, we're sharing important information about some important environmental topics. You are welcome to check out our website at cleanearthforkids.org to learn more about our 6 teams and our mission statement. So we are working very hard to get some action plans passed here in, I guess I should say there in California. Some of the points on this list include setting 100% renewable energy goals, creating climate action plans, planting trees, gardens, parks, getting more indoor plants to people, protect clean air, and provide green transportation options for cities in California to protect our communities and our future. We also have some good news about LA and California using 100% renewable energy soon. And that's really important because it'll limit the amount of emissions and pollutions in a really big city that contribute to climate change. And I'll put that that link in the chat. So the summary of the article is basically LA could become one of the country's first major cities to nearly eliminate fossil fuels from its power supply. LA is capable of achieving 98% clean energy within the next decade and 100% by 2035, which will meet one of President Biden's most ambitious climate goals. And LA can do this without causing blackouts or disrupting the economy. The plan behind this goal is to build solar farms, wind turbines, and batteries as fast as possible, and putting solar panels on top of roofs, encouraging electric cars and electric heat pumps in homes. Did you know that there are energy efficiency and demand response programs that actually pay people to use electricity during different times of the day? This includes solar and wind power. This would help to counteract the climate crisis by slashing deadly air pollution from trucks and cars, power plants, gas furnaces, much of which are concentrated in low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. All paths to 100% clean energy can keep the lights on every hour of the year, and even on the most warmest days in the summertime and the coldest winter days, we can keep our heat and air going. It's also possible, we should note, to have electricity when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, since that seems to be a popular argument. Even when wildfires take down major transmission lines, there will still be power. That's a key point after the recent weather extremes that California has seen. And these crises have highlighted the importance of a reliable power grid. We saw brief rolling blackouts in California during a heat wave last summer, and in a different state, we saw multi-day outages in Texas during last month's winter storms. Mayor Eric Garcetti put it, "We can keep our medical equipment on, we can keep our refrigerators working, we can keep the city going, even if we face more extreme weather." The top scientists in the world have taken this from dreamland to reality. There are hundreds of pathways that could take us to 100% renewable. It no longer should be a question of if, but when and how. That being said, 100% clean energy is possible, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. There's still a lot of work to do. But overall, the important health effects that we see because of the extraction and burning of fossil fuels would be stopped. And we are glad that you're here to talk about more environmental issues with us. We thank you for your support, and here is Judith.
Thank you, Jillian. Hello, I'm Judith, an artist with Clean Earth for Kids and with Team 3. At cleanearthforkids.org, we welcome students to earn community service by taking notes, creating infographics, art, music, video clips, poetry about what you learned. And more information is on cleanearthforkids.org. And you are welcome to visit our YouTube channel, cleanearthforkids.org, to see our very important and informational videos. And we also welcome college students or adults to fill out an application to intern or volunteer with us. Thank you. Now here's John to talk about another community service idea with Project Drawdown.
Hey, thank you very much, Judith. So yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about Project Drawdown. Just so you know, in the coming weeks, we'll also be sharing these Project Drawdown strategies. For now, I'll put the link in the chat. So let me just, yep, there we go. Okay, so Project Drawdown is basically a research journal that its material has influenced university curricula, city climate plans, commitments by businesses, community action, philanthropic strategy, and more. And basically what Project Drawdown focuses on is strategies, like mostly unique and novel strategies and solutions to combat climate change. So if you'd like to help present these strategies and ideas, you could help by, creating a blog post, an infographic, a sample social media post, a video clip, music, art, or Project Drawdown. And you can email us your work at contests@cleanearthforkids.org. So I'll also put that email in the chat. And then also this also can count towards your community service credit hours. So this is a great way to help out, do good, and earn community service credit hours. So great. And now here's Judith to talk more about contests and challenges.
So at Clean Earth for Kids, we have many more contests and challenges. And if you go to our contest page at cleanearthforkids.org, you'll see a variety of contests like art, music, writing, poetry, STEM projects, and many more. If you like to write poetry, we have a contest just for you. We shouted out Kevin for his poem called Synthetic Nightmare, which is a call to action to stop tons of plastic in our environment and to stop plastic grass, which is synthetic turf, which has been known to contain PFAS and lead to toxic chemicals, creating injuries for athletes. That is why NFL players union and women's soccer teams call for playing on natural grass, like the men's soccer team. You can check out our cleanearthforkids.org Team 5 and our YouTube channel for more information and videos. Next, I'd like to talk about our Today Is contest or calendar contest. This contest is a way to show your art, music, videos, research reports, and many more. So you could teach us about what important things happened on that day. We're excited to hear from you. Today is actually Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery Day. So let's honor Harriet Tubman, who was enslaved, escaped, and helped others gain their freedom as a conductor of the Underground Railroad, and the Quakers, who risked their lives to house, feed, and help slaves to freedom. In our previous panel discussions, we have talked about women who have been leaders and heroes in our environment and honored them for their important work. These women have stood up for others and have gone through many challenges and hardships, but through perseverance, they overcame these obstacles, making them our heroes today. Today, we honor two women who are now in leadership positions at the White House who will make an important difference in saving lives. Thank you, and here is Anna.
Yes, thank you, Judith. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna, and I work with Teams 1 and Team 5. I'm excited to announce that Brenda Mallory will lead the White House Council on Environmental Quality and help coordinate President Joe Biden's policies on climate change, land use, endangered species, energy, and environmental justice policies across multiple federal agencies. Brenda Mallory knows how to regulate big infrastructure projects from pipelines to industrial facilities. A lawyer at Earth Justice said she holds a deep commitment to protecting everyone, including the most vulnerable from environmental pollution. And Senator Tom Carper from Delaware said, "I'm confident that Ms. Mallory will ensure that bedrock protection for the National Environment Policy Act are being fairly and adequately deployed to safeguard clean air and water throughout our country." This is so important because the Trump administration removed or rolled back the NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy, and over 104 vital protections for clean water, air, public lands, public health, endangered species, and took away safety requirements of products like car seats. Mallory will focus on protecting public health and the environment. The law that must be upheld is the NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. Mallory will work to bring back NEPA regulations from the Trump rollbacks. The Trump administration rewrote NEPA to allow projects that cause toxic pollution from the most basic environmental reviews, and the Trump administration cut out the public from this process. Earth Justice, the state of California, and many other states and organizations sued the Trump administration. Communities of color are burdened by pollution. This is because factories, coal plants, and highways are located in areas where a majority of people of color live. This is because of redlining, historic structural racism, and environmental discrimination. We need Brenda Mallory and others who work hard to stop toxic emissions that are harming people, water, air, ecosystems, wildlife, and reduce greenhouse gases that are causing climate change. You can see our action plan on the homepage of our website and help cities, universities, businesses, and individuals take climate action. Biden, the Senate, House of Representatives, and state and city lawmakers must help us quickly to transition from burning fossil fuels, natural gas, oil, and coal to clean energy. And so next, I'd like to talk a little bit about Janet McCabe. So that Janet McCabe will be the Deputy EPA, which is Environmental Protection Agency Administrator. Janet McCabe worked on the Clean Power Plan, a rule that reduces carbon and pollution from power plants. She was formerly the top official in the EPA's Office of Air and Radiation, so she knows this agency well and will be able to quickly get to the important work of protecting public health and the environment. And so I'm very honored to honor these two women as a female myself. And yeah, so I'm really inspired by all the hard work that they're doing. And so next, I'd like to talk about the These Are the Hands contest, which is open to everyone of all ages. We hope you will join us in making a drawing and decorating a hand to recognize, honor, and lift up people working for change and to make life better for others. So everyone is encouraged to participate and honor someone by honor someone who's making a positive difference in your school, community, city, state, or in our world. You can draw and decorate a picture of a hand, add symbols, words, and pictures to honor their work. And another contest that I'd like to share with everyone is the Protect What You Love contest, which you can participate in by sending us a picture or drawing of what you love and why we should protect it. We at Clean Earth for Kids and everyone who'd like to join can work together to protect our forests, national parks and wildlife, clean water, clean air, oceans, rivers, streams, and our health. So you can participate by taking a picture or draw or write about your favorite animal or place and why we should protect it. I am personally happy to see that Brenda Mallory, Janet McCabe, and the Native American woman that Cheyenne spoke about, Deb Haaland, will all be serving and protecting our country. And so Judith, if you could please tell us why oil and gas is harmful to our water, air, land, and public health, and also an action that we can all take, that would be great. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So, oil and gas is harmful to our air, water, land, and public health because because both oil and gas can pollute our or poison our water. This is due to oil spills, leaks, fracking, and in addition to fracking, groundwater pollution can happen. And this is bad because groundwater is very important because it provides drinking water, helps grow food, irrigates our water. An example is through sprinklers and many more. Another reason is that both emit or release carbon dioxide and many other pollutants. But even though natural gas releases less carbon dioxide than oil, both are still toxic to our air, land, and public health. So an action you can take is to ask President Biden to ban all new oil and gas leasing on federal public lands and waters. For more information, you can check out this link, which Jillian, could you please put in chat? Sorry. So about this action, the Department of the Interior of the United States is reviewing the federal oil and gas leasing program. So Deb Holland, that now leads the department, will look at oil and gas leases that allow oil and gas to be extracted or taken out on our public lands. Another way you can take action is by social media. You can post your support to stop new leasing of oil and gas wells on public lands and our shores. Jillian or Anna, could you please put samples of tweets and posts that the people can do, sorry. And while they're doing that, I will talk about them right now, some examples. So we need President Biden to permanently protect our public lands and coasts. Using Twitter is an effective method of communicating with decision makers. You can also use Facebook, Instagram, write an email, or send a letter. Please tag the president and his team's social accounts using shared hashtags protect our coast, no new leasing, protect public lands, and you can write a message to thank President Biden pausing the leasing of oil and gas and share why permanently protecting our coast and public lands are important to you. We oppose dirty and dangerous offshore drilling. We want to protect our coasts and public lands. Permanently protecting our coasts from drilling is good for our economy, and crucial for our climate. Here are some examples that you can use, which Jillian will post in the chat. So the US Interior is seeking input for stakeholders on Joe Biden's executive order pausing federal offshore and public lands oil and gas leasing. Offshore drilling is dirty, dangerous, and fueling the climate crisis. President Biden has an incredible opportunity to act on climate change and protect our coast once and for all by closing the chapter on further offshore oil leasing, no new leasing. Another example is our climate is in crisis. Joe Biden took bold steps to protect our coast, climate, and economy, and it is time for him and U.S. Interior to make these protections permanent. Ending new offshore oil drilling and will prevent billions in damages from climate change and oil spills disasters, while paving the way for millions of clean energy jobs. Here is Anna to read another example.
Yes, thank you, Judith. So another example would be today at U.S. Interior is seeking input from stakeholders via a virtual forum following President Joe Biden's executive order pausing all federal offshore and onshore oil and gas leasing. Offshore drilling is dirty, dangerous, and fueling the climate crisis. Hashtag no new leases and hashtag protect our coast. Another example would be permanently protecting U.S. waters from new drilling could prevent $720 billion or more in damages to people, property, and environment, more than the annual GDP of a major city like Washington, D.C. By permanently protecting our coasts from dirty offshore drilling and advancing clean energy like offshore wind, we can combat climate change and safeguard our clean coast economy. It's time to permanently hashtag protect our coast with hashtag no new leasing, hashtag protect public lands. And the last example I'll be sharing is permanently ending offshore drilling can help address the climate crisis and safeguard the U.S. clean coast economy, which is worth $250 billion and supports over 3.3 million jobs. At Joe Biden and at BOEM_DOEI, it's time to permanently hashtag protect our coast with hashtag no new leasing. And next here is John Williams.
Thank you very much, Anna. Here's another petition for you. So Action 4, it's petition SB 467, which is to end fracking and harmful drilling act. So the act would ban fracking and destructive drilling while requiring a 2,500-foot setback between wells and homes and schools in California. This is very important because imagine growing up as a kid and seeing this massive fracking plant right next to your house. Not only is it detrimental to your physical health, but also your mental health. Another thing that the act would do is, well, yeah, it's just another statistic actually is that almost 2.5 million Californians, mostly Black, Latino, and Indigenous people, live within a half mile of an oil or gas well. So a half mile, this is 2,500 feet. And they're exposed to things like benzene, hydrogen sulfide, and formaldehyde, which all cause cancer. Um, and a pretty sad fact is that fossil fuel lobbyists spent over $10 million last year to defeat similar bills because, they're willing to spend this money because they actually make more than $10 million by keeping it there, which is pretty messed up. You can fight this by, I'll put the link in the chat here. Okay, yeah, that's one way you can do it. And for more information, here's this link right here. And now I'll pass it back to Anna.
Yes, thank you, John. So next I'll be talking a little bit more about fracking and other extreme drilling practices, which are not only warming the planet, but causing a public health crisis that all too often disproportionately harms Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and other communities of color. But luckily, it does not have to be this way. To help end this fossil fuel racism, California Senate Bill 467 would put an end to extreme drilling and mandate a 2,500-foot public health buffer zone for communities living near drilling. So right now, nearly 2.5 million Californians, overwhelmingly Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and working class communities, live within a half mile of an oil or gas well. These wells emit pollution and carcinogens, which studies show carry significant public health repercussions, made all the more deadly during a global pandemic. Communities living near fossil fuel extractions are more likely to experience asthma, preterm births, and high-risk pregnancies, also respiratory diseases and even cancer, and now face a greater risk of death due to COVID-19. This is an issue of political will. Public support. 79% of Californians support public health buffers from drilling, and now is the time for you to do what is right by honoring people over polluters. Um, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and working class communities have long suffered an unjust public health crisis from air pollution and living near toxic fossil fuel sites. This is environmental racism, and it's time we put an end to it. Please support SB 467 and help deliver crucial protections for frontline communities most impacted by fossil fuel pollution. We ingest, inhale, absorb toxic products, including treated water or treated wood, treated wood, paper, plastics, and polyfibers, halogenated chemicals, coal, oil, and nitrogen fertilizers, which comprise our buying habits. There are even chemical synthetic residues inside of our tissues, polyethylene synthesized from oil and natural gas, and also insecticides, pesticides, and herbicides. We must stop torching of rainforests, old growth wooded regions, and deliberate polluting of oceans and waterways must cease. However, any efforts to do so must start with policies and actions here at home. It requires an admission that we as consumers are trapped within a vortex of near-term human extinction. One such countermeasure appears to be the Green New Deal. It can be clocked as the smart grid industry transformation into sustainable transportation, manufacturing, and energy output. Microgrids, peak load management, and renewables on a mass scale are calculated to greatly blunt relentless CO2 emissions. Next, I'd like to introduce Jillian.
Thank you, Anna. Hello everyone. I am Jillian. I'm a member of Teams 3 and 5, and today I want to talk to you about the impact of pollution on our health. More specifically, I want to talk to you about how air pollution negatively impacts children, pregnant women, babies, and generally adults as well. One really good resource I found that shows all of this is an infographic that was produced by the group Moms Clean Air Force, which is an organization that fights for clean air for all children. So there are some key takeaways that we can see off of this infographic. It can be a little hectic to see all this information on one picture, so I'd like to break it down. The first real key takeaway is that children's organs begin to grow in the womb, and organs like the lungs, the reproductive organs, and the brain continue to develop after birth. Another key takeaway is that air pollution impacts both pregnant women and the child in utero. An unfortunate fact that was brought up was that companies that produce pollution are not required to measure its impacts or report it to the communities. And finally, pollution is linked to 5 forms of impacts on children exposed. These 5 impacts are that it can cause congenital heart defects, is linked to low birth weight and preterm birth, is causational of high-risk pregnancies, and can cause neural tube defects. And I want to go a little bit further into each of these topics. So the first one I want to go into is a low birth weight. So a Pennsylvania study found that mothers that lived near natural gas wells were more likely to have a low birth weight child compared to those that did not live near natural gas wells. And we consider a low birth weight anything that's under 5.5 pounds, which is really small for a newborn. And it can be very dangerous to have a child at a low birth weight. And the next one is congenital heart defects. So in Colorado, in a Colorado study, babies whose mothers had a large number of gas wells within a 10-mile radius of their home had an increased risk of birth defects of the heart, of course, compared to babies whose mothers had no wells near their home. And it's important to define that a congenital heart defect is a structural problem with the heart. So it beats incorrectly or it can't perform its functions efficiently, and that happens since birth. So it's a defect that happens when the child is in the womb. The next one is preterm birth. So in a Pennsylvania study, babies whose mothers lived close to natural wells were more likely to be born preterm compared to babies whose mothers lived farther away. And being born preterm means that you're born before 37 weeks of gestation. So it takes up to 40 weeks for a child to completely develop in the womb. And anything under 37 is considered preterm and can be really dangerous for both the mother and the child. And the next one I want to talk about is a high-risk pregnancy. So again, going back to Pennsylvania, pregnancies among mothers who lived close to natural gas operations were more likely to be labeled high risk. And it's labeled high risk because they're more likely to have something like high blood pressure or excessive weight gain. Anything that can make the pregnancy more dangerous for both the mother and the child can be labeled as high risk. And finally, we're going to get to some of these symptoms that we see in, like, the symptoms that affect children who are exposed to air pollution. So the first one to get into is rashes. So in Washington County, Pennsylvania, people living less than 1 kilometer from the natural gas wells reported rashes and skin problems. I know another big skin problem that takes place in areas where there's a lot of natural gas usage is dry skin or flaky skin, of getting to the borderline psoriasis type flaky skin. The next one is upper respiratory symptoms. This is probably the one people think about most when they hear air pollution. So back in Washington County, people living less than 1 kilometer away from natural gas wells reported a lot of upper respiratory symptoms like coughing compared to people who lived 2 kilometers and farther away from wells. And I put a picture up here so we know what part of the body we're talking about when we say upper respiratory. So you're talking about in your face and in your throat. So you'll deal with coughing and mucus and congestion and stuff like that. And then the next one is an increased hospitalization rate. So a study showed that people living in zip codes with more gas wells were more likely to be hospitalized with heart problems compared to those living in zip codes with fewer gas wells. And what's really sad about this study is that it included children. So there was an increase in hospitalization rates among adults and kids in these zip codes. And let's see, the last one is kind of a catch-all with all of these symptoms that we see: fatigue, which is being really tired, dizziness, vomiting, headaches, nosebleeds, and among other things. There are some anecdotal evidence, which is basically like stories, and several case reports that many of the regions that have these set of symptoms pop up frequently are in communities near oil and gas operations. So there's a correlation, but we're not necessarily sure of causation just yet. But I'm sure with more research, we could definitely prove there's a link. And with that being said, I'm sure the question on everybody's mind is, how can I help my child, or how can I help children in my community? And the answer is pretty simple. Because the oil and gas industry does not monitor or disclose air pollution, you should be the one to document your family's health. So you can make a list of observations, notice any health problems in your family or in your community, and contact your local health department or your state environmental agency and let them know what's going on. If you have any questions about symptoms related to air pollution, visit your doctor, which you should visit regularly if you can, if you have the resources, and discuss these issues with them if you really believe it's a problem. So I kind of want to explain a little bit more about air pollution and what types of pollutants we see when we talk about air pollution. So the first one is this pollutant called benzene. Now, this one occurs naturally in oil and gas, and what happens is during the routine operations, extraction, movement of natural gases through wells and pipelines, compressor stations, and like using diesel equipment to get the gas from one place to another, it leaks out into the environment. And benzene is linked to some nasty side effects like leukemia, asthma attacks, lung infections, a low birth weight, headaches, vomiting, dizziness. So some of those symptoms we saw when we were talking about that catch-all category. The next one is diesel emissions. Now, diesel emissions are emitted from big equipment like generators or trucks. And most of these are associated with the development of oil and gas. We see a lot of the equipment like pumps and compressor stations are powered by diesel engines. And diesel emissions are linked to asthma attacks, cancer, lung infections, heart disease, and even premature death. So it's definitely something to take seriously. A third chemical that we see a lot in air pollution is formaldehyde. That's the chemical structure of it up on the screen. It's emitted by those compressor stations used in natural gas and oil transfer. And it's created by interactions of other pollutants after the pollutant has been combusted, so it's been used. And it's linked to asthma attacks and cancer, which you'll see a lot of these chemicals are linked to the same sort of health problems because air pollution in general causes these health problems. So the next one is methane. And I know we've talked about methane multiple times on this panel because it is such a big greenhouse gas. It is very powerful, and it is honestly a big contributor to climate change as a whole. So not only do we have health problems when you're being directly exposed to methane, but now we have the health impacts of climate change as a whole, which can include things like heat illness, asthma attacks, vector-borne illnesses, and disruptions to the global food supply. So methane comes from basically being leaked in the natural gas cycle. It comes from the transportation of it. And the last, I believe it's the last one that I want to talk about is particulate matter or particle pollution. So again, another one we've talked about in depth on this panel is particulate matter, which is basically really small particles that float in the air. You can see them on the screen in reference to the size of a human hair and fine beach sand. So they're super, super small and they're really hard to filter out. So they collect in your lungs, which can make them really dangerous. And linked again to things like asthma attacks, cancer, premature death. But this one is also specifically linked to infant death and that low birth rate that we talked about earlier. So to kind of finish, oh, I forgot one. So the next one is silica dust. So silica dust is like fine particles that you get from working in industrial settings, and it can lead to some pretty nasty health effects like asthma attacks, lung cancer, things like that. Very similar to all the other ones and just as dangerous and something that needs to be taken seriously. And after that, I think, yes, smog. So smog is what we typically picture when we talk about air pollution. It is called ground level ozone. It's when chemicals like benzene react with heat and air and they form this really thick mist of chemicals that can be really dangerous to breathe in and can lead to things like asthma attacks and cancer again. But this is what we see a lot of the times. It'll take place over cities that have a lot of pollution, and it's a big problem that needs to be addressed because it can limit visibility and it can make entire cities very sick. And I believe that is the last one, but I want to finish up by stating the Clean Earth for Kids stance on the use of natural gas. We as an organization do not support the use of natural gas for energy. It is directly linked to climate change. It has a lot of negative health impacts, and it's just generally bad for the environment to use. So we do not support the use of it, and we would rather look towards clean energy. So things like electric energy and green hydrogen are going to change our future. Green hydrogen only emits water vapor after it's been used, and it can pull heavy loads like dealing with ships and heavy trucks that we see for essential to things like the food supply. It's essential that we stop fossil fuels. So now I am going to turn it over to, I believe, John to talk about divestment.
Great, thank you. So yeah, divestment is basically, well, first let me talk about investment. So investment is basically where institutions like universities can grow the amount of money they have by investing in companies, which can make the lives of future students more affordable and more educational. But sometimes this means that institutions will invest in bad companies. So think of, for example, BP oil spill in 2010, like that. BP is a company that you can invest in right now. But by divesting in these bad companies, you're basically taking away money that they could otherwise use to promote their bad agendas. And you can actually reinvest it in good companies such as, companies that make solar panels or something. So next slide. And why does divestment matter? So investments are a reflection of institutional values. So cities and state government investments are a reflection of the values of our communities. So both educational and government institutions are looked to for leadership on important issues. So this basically means we need to try and incite change in our institutions, educational and governmental, to divest from fossil fuels and put that investment into new and better forms of energy. So, yep. Okay, now here's Anna.
Yes, thank you, John Williams. So next, I'm going to be talking about two petitions that you can sign and participate in, and some actions you can take. The first one is the action of signing the petition to tell your representative we need national standards for toxic heavy metals in baby food. Baby food samples show dangerous levels of toxic heavy metals like lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. These metals can hurt babies' brain development, and the FDA does not have limits on heavy metals in baby food, unfortunately. So signing this petition will tell them that we do meet those national standards. So I'll input that in the chat. But first, the next action you can take is signing the petition to support the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. So the federal bill will be introduced on Thursday, March 25th, which will work on reducing single-use plastics, requiring real recycling, make companies accountable for the waste from what they sell, and much more. So I'll be inputting those two petitions in the chat for everyone. And next, I would like to introduce Sydney, who'll go over the Ocean Friendly to Go program.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for having me. This is kind of a big deal as I've never done this before, but I admire everyone on here for what they're doing to help protect the environment and combat environmental racism and protect our health and our planet. Anyway, I'm here to talk about Ocean Friendly to Go. Oh, just pardon me. I'm gonna need to look at my notes every now and then, and it's gonna take me a few seconds. So anyway, so starting with what is Ocean Friendly to Go? Ocean Friendly to Go is a new program that's been introduced in the past several months by Surfrider. So this is how it works. A customer places their order, and either they can ask the employee if they can have an Ocean Friendly to Go, or the employee can ask them if they want an Ocean Friendly to Go. And what happens is you bring your own container, and they put a plate on a table, and they put your meals that you order on a plate, a reusable plate, so that when you walk in, you go to the counter or a guest and say, "Hi, I have a Ocean Friendly to Go," and then they lead you to where your meal is. You then take your containers and you pack the food in your containers yourself. So this is a great solution to ease the anxiety about spreading germs and COVID and stuff, because there's no customer to employee contact, because the employees already put the food on the plate themselves, and then all you're doing, or whoever's with you, is transferring the food by yourself. That way you can walk out and you can pay, and you can say, "Oh, well, I saved 2 containers or 3 or 4 or however many meals you ordered." Just 1 minute. Also, I heard yesterday on an OFR meeting that about $700 million per day are spent on small business to go orders. So if you think about how much that is every day, that's probably millions of containers, most of them plastic and styrofoam, being trashed and not recycled, and some even ending up in waterways, polluting our water, killing wildlife, and even breaking down into little particles and getting into our bodies and the seafood that we eat. So it's really bad. Also, some people may think, "Oh, well, this is going to cost a lot more to transition, because of, like, we'll have to wash the dishes, we'll have to hire more people, or we'll have to buy containers made out of materials that are more expensive." But in the long run, it could help the economy, because if you think about it, small businesses wouldn't have to spend as much money on buying destructive and harmful containers that usually are only used once. And if we take action now on climate, and I guess I'm going to be kind of honest here, but if we get our head out of the clouds and listen to the science, it could actually help the economy in the long run because we could avert the worst irreversible impacts of climate. We could even prevent it from happening where they say that around 2050 there could be more plastic than fish in the ocean, and this is just devastating. Also, restaurants can't promote this without participation of communities. So if communities and customers are not asking for their orders to be ocean friendly to go, or if restaurants don't have it in their usual order taking to ask the customer if they want ocean friendly to go, then how are they going to promote this? So what we got to do is we as customers and we as community members have to try to make a mental note of um, not letting the pandemic wipe away all of this wonderful progress that we've made on plastic. It's been very depressing to see how much of this progress has just been thrown down the drain, and we should work really hard to prevent that from being gone forever. We must try to remember to bring our own reusable containers when we go dine out. That way we're not using styrofoam and plastic. We can just pack our leftovers in reusable containers. And imagine if half of the people in San Diego or LA or just any type of city in the US participated in Ocean Friendly to Go. And if half of the customers brought in a to go container and placed an OFR to go, think about how much money we could be saving, how much pollution we could be preventing, and how much landfill space we could be saving. Also, how we can promote it, how can we promote this? Well, I urge people to contact ocean friendly restaurants via phone, email, visiting, or social media about this and tell them why it's important. So here's the thing. So people can volunteer with Surfrider and we can send messages, tell restaurants. I think it's a good thing to start where at ocean friendly restaurants. So if we tell them what this OFR to go program is, explain how it works, and tell them why it's important, about how much we could be saving, how much pollution we could be preventing, and also the most importantly, to ease the anxiety about spreading germs. Tell them that there is no customer to employee contact. All the workers need to do is make it a note to ask their customers if they want an OFR to go, and if they say yes, then all they need to do is when you walk in, the guest or the hostess can say, okay, your meal is right here, and then they just pack it. Also, if anybody wants to volunteer, I urge people to, just a second. Okay, so who to contact if anybody wants to volunteer. So you can call Surfrider if you want more information. You can also email Kellyn, Kellyn, at surfrider.org, or you could email Vicky at surfrider.org. And I don't know if anyone was showing the slides that I texted you guys, but all the information is on there. Maybe Suzanne can send it to you via email. So I'm hoping that somebody will want to help us get more OFRs to become OFR to go, because we should keep this momentum of reducing plastic and reducing pollution. Also, I
Thank
wanted
you
to
so
share.
much, Sydney. Thank you so much. So we need to, so what time is running out? We are at 6:25. Thank you
Okay.
so much for all that you shared. So Anna did share
Okay.
Kellyn and Vicky's email in the chat, and they are both just great. Vicky is wonderful. And if you go to our Team 6 page on Clean Earth for Kids, you can see examples of Judith, Hannah, and Darren, and gosh, I think Kevin and others, doing ocean-friendly restaurants and shouting those people out. And ocean-friendly to go is
Yeah.
new, so we don't have that on our website yet. We have information, but we don't have any examples. So this was really helpful, Sydney. Thank you so much for all of that. So
Thanks
I'll
for
pass
having
it. I
me.
know our time. Yes, of course. It's fabulous. Thank you. So I'll pass it now to Darren. Darren is going to talk about pesticides. And I know, and so important the work that we are doing with that. And we have some really good news about being on a panel, being included on a panel with people from all over the country on April 8th. So speaking out about pesticides. So we were asked to participate with some very well-known organizations and some very well-known people from all over the country on that panel. So that's coming up in a few weeks. So, and we'll continue to work hard on this issue. So after Darren talks about pesticides, that will just be so important, we may wait to share till next week more information about PFAs and also chemicals that get into, that are in your couch and what to do about it. So John Williams and Anna are going to share important information about what we can do about PFAS, PFAS, the class of over 5,000 chemicals. If you guys have not seen Dark Waters, definitely with Rob Below as the fabulous lawyer that he is in real life. Please check that out, Dark Waters movie. And if you haven't, and Mark Ruffalo plays the lead. And about pesticides, there's so many things to watch. Kiss the Ground is a really inspirational movie that you can watch, and others about great things we can do. A couple weeks ago, we had on George Corman from, he's a farmer and he does permaculture. And he was teaching us all about that. And we've had Marlo on and others. So we have lots to do to work really hard. And thank you so much for being here tonight. So we'll have Darren share about an idea about or some information about pesticides. And we're excited for your help to pass PACTPA, Protecting America's Children from Toxic Pesticides, which will get rid of organophosphates. We'll stop toxic pesticides such as organophosphates, that class, neonics, that class, and also paraquat, which is very dangerous. So we'll go ahead. Oh, there you go. Thanks. And that's PACTPA. Jonah will be doing, I don't think he's on tonight, but Jonah will be sharing information about PACTPA in coming weeks, and we're going to be doing radio ads and all kinds of other things. So thank you so much. So we'll go into a lot more detail about all of this in the coming weeks. And thank you so much for your patience. So Darren, if you could give us some information now about what you'd like to talk about with pesticides.
Yeah, so this is like a specific part about PACTPA, but I wanted to talk about an article called the Paraquat Papers, and it was about evidence. It showed evidence about this company called Syngenta and how they used "quote unquote" bad science to keep a toxic weed killer in the market. And bad science is very vague, but one criticism that they had with their reports on their pesticides that they were being used was that they only paid attention to like specific chemicals that were not as toxic as others. And so according to their studies, because they only tested chemicals that were not as toxic as the other ones, they were qualified as like safe, but there were still like other toxic pesticides that weren't really tested. And because they haven't tested those, scientists kind of believe that there is probably the pesticide is probably very toxic and dangerous for people. And so it comes to show that when people show that pesticides are like safe, sometimes you have to pay attention to kind of like their experiments and the data that they kind of done to prove that they're safe. And yeah, I just want to keep it a little short because it's getting towards 6:30. But Yeah, so I think kind of like the general idea I wanted to talk about was that sometimes you can't just focus on one specific chemical or one specific active ingredient or even the most abundant ingredients in pesticides, because sometimes it's about the ingredients you have in smaller amounts and also the interaction between like a mixture of chemicals that can cause the toxicity of a pesticide as a whole. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, thank you. And if we can see the PACTA slide again. So thank you, Darren. And this is the PACTA papers. I think that just came out yesterday. So thank you so much. This is like hot off the press. So you can see again, PACTA. Now this is former Senator Tom Udall of New Mexico. So he did not seek re-election, he retired, but there are others that are taking up this fight. So Jonah will list for you later the list of senators that are supporting PACTA and the list of the House of Representatives. We need to find out which senators haven't signed on to PACTA and which members of the House. So that means all of us. We need our representatives, our federal representatives, to make sure that they have signed on to support this very important bill and have this passed. So although it says Pesticide Act of 2020, it's still there. And then we need to talk with Al Marisucci, Assembly member from the 66th District in California, and others who will put something similar for the state of California up. So we need to have a similar bill for PACTA for the state of California, and then also, Hawaii and New York. Those will probably be the first adopters because those are the first 3 states that banned chlorpyrifos that hurts children's brains: California, Hawaii, and New York. We need to talk a lot more about pesticides. And on April 8th, we will be on a panel with NAACP members from St. Louis, Missouri, and people from Wisconsin and all different states. So we have a real opportunity to work hard and to make changes on a national level and then also at our state level as well. So thank you guys for tonight. Thank you so much, and thank you to Sydney, and congratulations for your first panel. You did a fantastic job. And shout out to everybody here working so hard. And Jillian, the slide presentation that you did, very insightful. And I feel like everyone needs to see that. I mean, obviously, all that we talked about, people need to see, but all medical professionals need to have, and everyone working in health and everywhere need to have this basic information that is so crucial, right? And you broke it down just beautifully. And Judith, of course, your fantastic art was here and all of that. And Anna, thank you so much for all you do. And we are excited to hear about what you have to share next week. And John Williams as well, thank you for talking about Project Drawdown. We're going to be going through that. People can get community service by talking about those and doing that. And Darren, thanks for bringing us information about the Paraquat papers. It's just out like yesterday, so fantastic. So, and anyway, thanks so much to all of you. We're missing some of our people because they're taking tests or they were working. So we acknowledge that and are so grateful for you guys. We know lots of you have jobs outside of the work that you do here, and you're in school, or you're in school. So thank you again so much for being here, and everybody have a great night. And I look forward to seeing you. I have time this weekend to meet. And if anybody would like to stay on, I'll be here after, so I can do that. And I'll say real quick, so Sandra just made a comment. And so you know how our new slogan, get the lead out. So we're going to be we've always worked on lead, right? But we're going to take it to the next level and look and see what we can do about stopping lead used in small aircraft and others, so that we can get the lead out, because there's no safe level of lead. So thanks again, guys. Have a great night. And I'll be here if you want to stay on. If not, I'll see you soon. Okay. Thanks so much, guys.